Welcome, and welcome back to our loyal followers to the West Hartford Public School Board of Education. Today's Tuesday, September 4th, and it's the first meeting of the new year. And before we move to the official agenda, I just want to welcome our two new student representatives, Megan Striff-Cave from Hall and Gus Bacon from Conard. So welcome. We're very happy to have you. Tammy, if you don't mind, please calling the roll.
Mrs. Blanks?
Here.
Dr. Greenberg?
Here.
Mr. Levine?
Here.
Mr. Paul Uke?
Here.
Ms. Poland?
Here.
Dr. Thomas Farquharson?
Here.
Mr. Zdanowitz? Here. Student Representative Gus Bacon? Here. And Megan Striff-Cave.
Ordinarily, we have you guys taking turns to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, but I think since it's the first time, let's let Mr. Moore do it.
Show them how to do it. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Are there any revisions to the agenda order that I don't know about? We're good. Okay, there's, alas for us, no student participation tonight. And I didn't see anybody on the list. Is there anyone who wants to address us during the public communications? Okay, moving right along to unfinished business, of which there is none. Moving therefore on to new business, which includes, I guess, staff communications and reports. Leading off with our beloved superintendent's report.
All right, really tonight's whole report is the superintendent's report, so I'll invite everybody to come up as I introduce the things from over the summer. Really, but first I do want to make one announcement, actually an exciting notification that will become public on Thursday. We have a sneak preview, and since we won't have a board meeting during that time because there is open voting, I asked if I could present it tonight. Sam Rothfarb is a rising junior at Conard High School. At the beginning of the summer, he submitted a video to Junior Breakthrough Challenge with thousands of other students around the world. This is an annual global competition where students submit a 3-minute science explanation video. The organization sponsors a Khan Academy, National Geographic, and Cold Spring Harbor Lab, and several leaders in technology. His video is actually on the flu vaccine, how it works, and how the flu can mutate, and the dangers of a flu pandemic. Out of the thousands who submitted, his video has been scored as one of the top 30, which is in itself really exciting. But the stakes make it really amazing. So he's already a winner. We know that at 30. Out of the 30 semifinalists, the ultimate winner will be awarded a $250,000 college scholarship. In addition, the high school that the winner attends receives $100,000 to spend as we see fit in the sciences, such as for a new lab, that kind of technology. And then the student chooses a teacher who will receive $50,000. So just the fact that Sam has gotten this far is really incredible. And select videos are being posted and used by Khan Academy right now. So there'll be an announcement from the organization formally on Thursday, at which point it'll be for Facebook and voting on Facebook. So there's kind of a media blackout till Thursday or Friday, I think. And then people will be able to vote, and the vote goes to the top 10, and then panel of scientists. So 30 down to 10, and then panel of scientists will pick the top one. So really just exceptional. So congratulations. I met with him and his dad and his brother last Friday, and it was just great. So good news to come back on. And really, that's the kind of thing over the summer, people doing things independently. We had a busy summer, a productive summer. We did a couple things differently this summer. We brought in administrators and did a brainstorming session to think about what kind of things should we be doing for the world in 2030. And we have students now that don't graduate till 2031. And so you begin thinking about what are they going to need to be prepared for, and what do we have to do differently, and how much are things going to change. And so we spent a lot of time on that, with some people coming up with some good ideas about what would be best for kids. And so that was powerful. And then we had, and they'll talk a lot about this, but our new teacher orientation, where we had a little more teachers than we expected. But it's just a great day, and thanks to those of you that could come. Thanks, Carol, for speaking. And just really nice to see so many people so excited either to begin their careers in general or to begin their careers in West Hartford after teaching in other places. And then we had Convocation, which is always an excellent kickoff to start the year off. And thanks to Mark for your remarks kicking us off there. And Paul will speak more about that with our guest speaker. The other thing that it would be, based on the emails I've received, it's apparently hot. I want to assure people, yes, I've been in all the buildings. The first day of school, I go to every building. Executive team members have been in all the buildings. And, you know, that's one of the reasons why we did something different today. And we dismissed elementary at 1 o'clock. And while that's not part of any formal plan that we have, when Andy and I discussed it yesterday, it seems like that's kind of prudent to change things, to adjust, rather than dismissing everybody, the people that have air conditioning. That doesn't really make a lot of sense, although even though some elementary schools, because of busing, we can't really pick and choose the elementary schools when you're looking at a whole host of them. Andy will talk a little bit more. We do have some air conditioning issues at King Philip that are a little more serious, and a couple issues at Conard that you know, air conditioning doesn't break down in December, breaks down when it's in heavy use. So we know it's warm. For those of you wondering, will there be an early dismissal tomorrow? Yes, because there's always an early dismissal on Wednesday. That will be the, just like the first day of school. So we'll follow our regular Wednesday schedule tomorrow, and we'll look at Thursday once it gets closer and once we have a better idea of where we are and where the schools are. So with that being said, I'll turn it over to my team.
Good evening, welcome back, and welcome Megan and Gus. I have the privilege of reporting out first this evening on the summer activities of West Hartford's continuing education, where heat was not a factor. It was a productive, rainy season for us. The Office of Continuing Education oversees 3 operations. That's the summer interdistrict summer high school program, mandated adult education, and life learn enrichment. I'll just share a few highlights from each of the programs. The summer high school enrollment was at 645 students this year. And although the program attracted students from 28 surrounding towns and school districts, our West Hartford Summer High School largely enrolls West Hartford students, Conard and Hall students, with some middle school students as well. And they enroll for both get ahead and credit recovery and enrichment purposes. Each year we aim to improve the quality as well as the diversity of the program. This year we were very fortunate to share space at Conard High School with the extended school year program, which Gretchen will talk about. And we were honored to host 26 intercambio students, exchange students from Spain. And so through a grant by the foundation, awarded to us by the foundation, the West Hartford Public Schools, our middle school and high school students participated in an exciting makerspace program, which allowed students school-wide across grade levels, interests, backgrounds, talents, and strengths to be involved in a really cool enterprise of designing, building, collaborating, problem solving, and hands-on building, which fostered school spirit and inclusion. This year, the summer high school also launched a blended learning platform called Edgenuity, and it's a live and online platform that allows for extended learning opportunities that's guided and monitored by a certified teacher. And it also provided flexibility for students who have competing summer commitments and responsibilities, and allows them to keep on track with their high school requirements and also to get ahead as well. And so for a few of those students, they were on the cusp of stopping out of school. And so we were able to hold on to them. And then one student was able to complete 2 classes after she had stopped out, and we got her to come back, and she graduated. She finished this summer. So we're excited about that, and we'll continue to look at how we might be able to use that, expand that platform. Our citizenship classes ran for part of the summer so that our adult learners who are preparing for the naturalization process could continue that learning. And for those adult learners who have stopped out but have committed to returning and completing their high school requirements, we continue to run our external diploma program throughout the summer. So we look forward to their graduation on Thursday, November 8th, right here in Town Hall in the auditorium. You'll get an invitation next month. And then finally, our Life Learn Enrichment Program. It offers something for everyone, at almost every stage of life. And we had residents of West Hartford and the surrounding towns take advantage of about 125 classes, trips, and tours. We took in about 600 registrations in the month of June and July. So our fall catalog is available in print and online, and it's mailed to every resident in West Hartford as well as our subscribers in surrounding towns. So that's my summer update for continuing education.
Can we ask questions as you go, or do you want to wait till the end?
You prefer. Your choice.
However you want to do it. Yeah, you can ask questions.
I just had a
yeah.
quick question for you about the summer programs, and I just didn't want to forget it. I know that in the past, the summer programs, there's been some concern about falling enrollments and finances and stuff like that. How did we do this year? How do you feel about it?
So again, every year we try to be strategic. In the past, more than 7 years ago, we were always able to take advantage of an inter-district collaborative grant. And so we were able to access some funding to bring in students from other districts, from Hartford and Bloomfield in particular. And so we haven't had access to that grant. The state just hasn't offered those opportunities. And so we've had to be more creative. We've cut back in a lot of areas. The Edgenuity blended learning allowed us to minimize our teacher staffing in a way that most adequately matched our student enrollment. Those ratios, I remember once you talked about 3 students being in a class. Well, sometimes those are the 3 students that needed that class to graduate. You don't want to pull the rug out from under them, the last day of high school in June. So we've been creative with that, as well as materials. We'll continue to do that. And so we'll see. I connect all the time with Chip on how we're doing.
Yeah, so, and it's one of those things that really, summer school in this program, it's not going to be a moneymaker the way it was when we got grants, but it's a program we still need to have. It's a part of our offerings. It's important for credit recovery, but it's also important for those students that have diverse interests or things can't fit into their schedule during the year. So if you look at, we had 645 students enrolled. That makes it a large high school in the area. It's not large compared to Conator Hall, but if you look at the totality of the state, it puts it right in where high schools are, kind of. So I think overall, do a really good job because the curriculum doesn't shift. Those kids that are taking those courses are taking the same midterms, the same finals that they'd be taking during the regular year. It's rigorous. It's a lot of work for the kids. One of the things that I think you've seen is other districts, not only do we not get the same grant, other districts offer more credit recovery themselves. So it actually, we used to have far more credit recovery offerings and far more busing coming from other towns. We don't have that in the same type of numbers.
Thank you. Mark, did you? Oh, I'm sorry.
So the grant that we lost, is that something that we lost this year? And is that part of that, was that part of that ECS package that the governor was flip-flopping? Yes, you have it. No, you don't. Here's a bigger cut, less cut. Or is this a different part of that Connecticut budget that maybe we didn't anticipate, or maybe we did? I don't know. How was it that we lost it, and is it part of the cuts that Connecticut's offering last year?
We lost that prior to my tenure in this role.
How long? It was probably 6 years ago, 5 years ago. Yeah, they did away with the grant.
Okay, so I guess then, so how has summer school been versus this year versus last year, not considering the grant at all, because that's past history? So I was assuming the way that was answered, that we lost it
Yeah,
relatively quick.
we'll have a financial report when we do the September 30th financial report at that point in time.
Anticipate with, how about the kids' enrollment, just that? Is it?
Rosina would know that.
Right, I think we dipped about 50 students this year. We didn't offer some of the other elective courses that we offer generally that are usually low enrollment classes. And we just didn't attract the number of students from, say, Hartford and Bloomfield that we usually do. We couldn't provide tuition waivers this year, and we did have a high number of students who had financial need that we were happy to accommodate.
I guess that's why I thought we lost the grant this year, because you mentioned the Bloomfield and now the tuition waiver. So were we able to offer the tuition waiver last year without the grant and the year before and previously? And so where and why did the tuition waiver go away then for us?
So the tuition waiver, we offer that because we are self-sustained. We have to charge enough to be able to clear our overhead expenses. We're not looking to make revenue. So we have been in this deficit for as long as I can remember.
Yeah, we run this at a deficit of like $50,000 to $60,000 a year, but that saves us somewhere around 2.5 to 3 FTEs in the regular school year. So, we're still a net ahead.
More details will come with the actual presentation of when we do that in October of their line items, so.
Thank you, Rosina, for the report. I always enjoy listening to the summer program and also the continuing education, especially for the adult learners and those who are seeking their citizenship. Believe it or not, I have folks come up to me and are unsure about the program, and I feel great when I'm able to direct them to you, and they come back and they're so thankful. So that's what I love about the program. But I do have a quick question, and it's regarding the Summer Jazz Jam, because I want to know if those students, do they perform at the Wednesday evening summer concert in Elizabeth Park, or no? In
They-
terms of that performance that they did?
It's usually a different night, a Wednesday or Thursday, whenever we can get the park at no cost.
Okay.
So as long as we're not competing to use that venue with another performer, we
Okay.
get it at no cost.
All right, I think that's great. That's why I bring that up. You know, I've been eyeing that concert, and I would have loved to attend just to hear our students perform, because I know overall they do really well in terms of the musical, and the jazz is just, you know, off the chain, if you will.
Thank you. And the weather held up for us this year, so we hope next year we'll send you an invitation.
Hi, thank you. One further question is, do we know, the students who took the citizenship class, do we know when they're going for their citizenship tests and ceremony?
We do. What we would like to do this year, if we can, if they pass in time for the high school diploma graduation, we would like to honor them at the West Hartford Adult Ed graduation ceremony. So we don't right now. What I normally do with our high school diploma program, we have collaborating towns. I try to stay on track with how they're doing to see when will they finish, and then we can invite those collaborating districts to come in. With citizenship, it varies. It really does vary. But we hope this year to be able to have enough that will pass in time for that graduation. So you get to see that as well.
Thanks. Next.
All right, so I'll go next, and the front end of this report, I'll really bring some more light to some of the programs that are offered under the auspices of summer programs Rosina talked about, but separate from summer school and tuition paid, we have a number of programs that are provided at no charge. Not the least of which are our Summer Connections and our Summer ESOL programs that we report on each year. They're in their 11th year here in the district, and they're targeted obviously at our higher needs populations. Summer Connections is a program specifically for neighborhood students from Smith and from Charter Oak, and offered typically at Charter Oak. And our ESOL program was hosted at Smith this year, and it attracts students, ESOL students from across the district, with the real goal of being able to prevent any summer slide. So this year, we supported, combined between those two programs, nearly 300 students, working on them, really providing some programmed academic instruction during the summer. And what was great about it this year was the programs provided leadership opportunities for high school students who came and did some interning, working with the teachers, and some mentoring. So we're very excited about that. And as it indicates in the report, students and families received individualized feedback that goes to their home, and it is also shared with their current year teacher. In addition, a similar program that West Hartford Public Schools partners with the town of West Hartford and with the Housing Authority and with community partners is the Hannock Summer Academic Program. It's also a 4-week program, and it is specifically targeted to support students and families in the Hillcrest area. It has a long history with West Hartford Public Schools dating back over 20 years. It is a 4-week program, and this year they were able to service, I had it down here, I think it was 45 students or something in that neighborhood. And what's exciting and interesting about that, their theme, each year they have a theme to some of their instruction, and their theme was empathy, and it really dovetailed nicely with our work on cultural competence, understanding bias, understanding multiple perspectives, and that kind of went along with some of the different grade level readings, and they had a selection of texts that they read from based on the age of the students. Just interesting to note that at Hannock right now, they're conducting their open houses this week, and they will begin their homework center programming a week from today on Tuesday the 11th. Next program of interest is Project Spark, which I always have to look, stands for Support and Promote Advanced Readiness in Kids. This entire program is funded through a grant from the which we received in collaboration with the University of Connecticut, Jarvis Grant. And we had 45 students from Wolcott who attended, who received enriched instruction with the goal really of identifying underrepresented student population within the gifted and talented area. The program concluded in terms of the work with students, but folks from UConn continue to work with us throughout the year, providing professional development to our teachers, coming in and talking about discourse and problem solving, which then blends right into instruction in those classes. There are two exchange programs of note. Rosina mentioned Intercambio, which had 26 students from our sister school in Madrid, Santa Maria del Pilar. They participated. It's a 2-year commitment when you're involved with Intercambio, one where you'll be hosting a family and one where you go for a visit. So this year was a hosting year, so there were 26 students from Madrid that came and stayed with West Hartford families. And then the goal is next year we will be sending some students over, and that's obviously been a long-standing program. Something that we've stood up more recently in the last few years is our Chinese exchange program. And this summer, 11 West Hartford students spent 2 weeks in Shanghai, staying on the campus of our sister school, the Shanghai Foreign Language School, where they engaged in instruction and cultural experiences. And as part of that, they had a 2-day homestay with a participating Chinese family. Very soon, the week of the 24th, we will be hosting and welcoming 26 students from Shanghai Foreign Language School to West Hartford, and they will stay for approximately 1 week. And they're going to do some fun things. They get to come to the board. They're going to sit in on some classes. I believe they're going to go on a trip to Yale and to the Mark Twain House. And finally, of note, our student leadership programming that we have at both our middle school and our high schools. So the middle schools participate in a program called Web, We All Belong, where it's a student leadership training typically offered to rising 8th graders, and they get to put that into action immediately. I saw when I was over at Sedgwick on the first day of school, I saw the Web leaders out helping to direct students to their classrooms, helping to answer questions, and really to kind of reduce that anxiety with our 6th grade. And we have a similar program. It's a little bit more of an in-depth training and I know you all are familiar with our Link Crew program, and they operate under the lines of safety, information, and connection. So they walk students kind of through a student perspective on our different school rules and policies. They share information, how the bell schedule works, how classes work, how to ask for extra help, how can I get some resource support in the library after school, things of this nature. And they form that connection, that upperclassmen to help our 9th graders with that transition. So those are some of the highlights from the written report in terms of the big summer programming, but it culminated for us as a district both with extended leadership and with convocation. And Tom kind of mentioned some of the brainstorming, but in our extended leadership, what I would like to highlight for you, of course, is what are we promoting as our leadership strategies and our areas of focus as a district under the 3 Board of Education goals that you've set for us. So under the first goal, advance achievement for all students and reduce disparities between and among groups, we have 3 big lines of effort, and I'll give you some specifics as to the kinds of things that we talked about at that brainstorming and at our extended leadership day, and what will be an ongoing effort for us throughout the year. Certainly, in the district development plan, you see the phrase, emphasize deep learning and 21st century skills, but what does that really mean? Well, it's been a focus for us for the last year and a half, and will continue to be a focus on student-centered instructional practices, putting the students at the center in the classroom, making them leaders of their own learning. We've done a significant amount of work of professional development in and around 3 major instructional strategies, and we'll continue that work. It's ongoing curriculum review and renewal. And I know, in curriculum office, I talk about this all the time. You say, what can be new, Paul? Well, we have new state standards in science this year that we are implementing and that will be tested on state assessments. There'll be a new state assessment in science, just updated to those new standards. We've finished our 3-year pathway for Chinese at the middle school, implementing an eighth grade Chinese curriculum for the first time, and that will strengthen the Chinese pathway towards AP Chinese at the high school. We're looking at our health curriculum. Our math curriculum will be in its 5-year review this year, and so on and so forth. So these are all ways that we try to keep that new and relevant, as well as rigorous and authentic application of skills. And we can talk about some of our new exciting courses, such as the emergency medical response that's being offered in our CTE department, and just some opportunities to highlight student performance that we saw in Voices of Inspiration and Rebellion at Hall. Just some phenomenal student work happening. We talk under this goal about clearing pathways for college and career readiness, and the big highlight there is we're going to be convening a graduation committee to look at the 2023 requirements and having an understanding of how that's going to impact educational programming at large for the West Hartford Public Schools, as well as a lot of effort and continued ongoing effort to look at college experiences, early college experiences for students, whether that's through the UConn program, whether that's through AP, or we also have partnerships that we've secured with both Central Connecticut and with Manchester Community College, where students can take courses free of charge on a space available basis. So something that we continue to promote. And our work in reducing disparities in achievement between and among different groups of students. This was really a highlight of some of our extended leadership work this summer, where we've begun the process of taking a deep dive look at all of our policies, our practices, with an eye towards eliminating any systemic inequity and any cultural bias, which I know you hear us report on as a team frequently. The only other things I'll highlight just for brevity quickly, things that Tom has made mention to our leadership team that we need to work on. Welcoming schools, which fits under Board Goal 2. Creating a safe and respectful learning environment. Behavioral intervention programming that Gretchen and I are partnering on using the collaborative proactive solution model. And certainly work of our EDC and collaboration between Rosina and the whole team, really, when we're talking about planning our extended leadership, our professional learning and evaluation committee work, and other efforts. I'd be stealing thunder if I talk about Goal 3, where we talk about recruiting a more diverse teaching, so I'm going to let Rick speak to that. But the last piece that I did want to make mention of under Goal 3 is Tom's really talked about investing in leadership. He talked about it with us as a leadership team, and he mentioned it at Convocation, where we had that inspirational address from Medal of Honor recipient, and he outlined his framework, his tenets for leadership, and it was really the charge of the superintendent for all teachers in the district, all staff members, pretty much everyone at every walk of life in our schools, to have a leadership role in shaping the future of our students and our children in the community. So that's one of the big takeaways from Convocation. I'd be remiss not to kind of give a shout out to Shiloh Peak, who self-described herself as loud, energetic, and ready to learn. It was just an exciting and motivational day, and we look forward to presenting to you further throughout the year on all of those kind of big ideas.
I have a couple. Oh, did you? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I'm just curious, if I may, on the intercambio and the Chinese program. Those are kind of extended programs. I'm curious, the cost must be quite expensive. Do we have assistance for students, or is there anything that the board contributes to lower the cost of those programs?
To my knowledge, we do not contribute as a board. The money is raised by the students. It is can be several $1,000s to participate. Mm-hmm. I'm certain that they are doing fundraisers and things of that nature in the school level.
Thank you.
Okay. A quick question about Project Spark, and then this is the final summer session, as you noted, and it says here, and my question is, I understand what the program is, but do you think it worked? And if so, is it something we can continue, or is it just over?
That's an excellent question. Mary Thompson, who I know is in the audience, came and asked about it, and we talked a little bit about it at executive team with the superintendent today to have a longer conversation to see what we would bring. What I can tell you, and I'm going from memory, so Mary, if she makes a face, it's because I'm quoting it wrong. But there were a small number of students at Whiting Lane School that she used as a control group, and then the larger Wolcott population, and the number of students that were identified under gifted and talented at Wolcott over the course of the last 5 summers was significantly larger. However, I don't know that we can say that we, even within that, were able to get at underrepresented groups that we were targeting. I know that I'm working in collaboration with Mary to have a more formal presentation to Tom, who can then provide further guidance kind of down the road.
The question inevitably would be, as you said, did it work? I mean, that's question one. Sometimes we do things that are great ideas, and okay, let's look at what happened. And then for a program like this, we had a grant opportunity to partner with a school to really focus on a small scale. To continue, I don't think we would want to just continue with one place. And if you're going to if it's replicable, it would need to be expanded and open to more students throughout West Hartford. So again, that's something we'll be looking at, talking about, and we'll follow up with the board later on that.
Thank you. It's great, as you say, we try lots of new things, but it's important to make sure that the ones we try actually work before we keep playing. So thank you. The other question I had was about the indicators that you talked about briefly, and you laid out in a little more detail in the briefing book. First, I just want to make my annual point that the goal that 85% of graduating seniors will enroll in a 2 to 4 post-secondary program in the first year after graduation. Just, again, I know that this is not your language, but all those people who take gap years and should be taking gap years, and it's great to take gap years, then hurt our numbers in that sense, which is why I understand it's 85%, but I just wanted to say again that the goal may not appropriately be the first year, but within X number of years, so that, but I know you've heard that before, I just had to say it again. But my question is, of all these indicators, we're going to earn this level of this, and we're going to achieve that level of that. Which do you think are going to be the hardest to reach, and is there anything that we can do to help in achieving some of these goals?
The goal that we struggle with continuously, and I think is reducing disparities between and among groups. I mean that, and that can be based on racial groups, socioeconomic. That could be based on students with disabilities. That continues to be, I think, the hardest struggle, and the strategy is become very specific. If it were simply a question of teaching better, I think we are teaching better, and I think at the end of the day, that's where we see evidence of some of our gaps widening, because rising tides kind of raise all boats, raise all ships. So that's the toughest one, I think, is a short answer.
Thank you. I mean, just keep telling us how we can help, because they're wonderful goals.
Yeah, I mean, these, as we look at all of these are the board goals, the board indicators, and they're aggressive. So, I mean, the true answer is they're all difficult. I think achievement gap, opportunity gap, whatever we want to call it in America, I think that's America's #1 educational issue. Here, there, and everywhere. So we've made some strides. I think we're way better at identifying where we have issues than we used to be. And that's, if you want to go back historically and talk 17 years and No Child Left Behind, while there were significant issues with No Child Left Behind, bipartisan legislation, that the end result of it, I think most people would agree, is punitive. but it did require reporting on all subgroups. And while we all here blanch at subgroups, because it feels like you're labeling and it's very uncomfortable, but it did get people away from saying, well, we're at 75%, that's our goal. Well, what if all the same kids make up that 75%? And so I do think that that's a legacy that's important in American education that that this speaks to, that we have improved, certainly, and keep improving. And our data, we keep getting more and more data and getting better and better at using it. So,
Thank you. Other questions?
So we talked about it a little bit last year about the achievement gap, and I kind of relate it almost like to an unemployment number. They say like when you're at unemployment at 4.2%, there's really no unemployment because people aren't looking for jobs, and if they are, they're either not looking or whatever. So 4.2% is I think what they call, full employment, if you will. So as we have our continuous improvement model and we close the gap on the achievement gap, we all know that, not all students are going to take AP chemistry and not all kids are going to get a 4.2 average. So inevitably there's a gap. So where do we, and that's I don't want to say but how do we get to the goal where we're like, okay, we're there, so how do we measure that? And we're there, so you're 4.25 all AP courses and you're maybe a child getting a 2.5 and working really hard. There is an achievement gap there. So where do we measure it and how do we measure it to make sure that we're making gains, obviously, but that we're not trying to close a gap to zero. We'd love to, right, of course, but I don't think it's attainable. So how do we measure that and make sure that we're tracking and that we're applying the right resources to close that gap to where it should be?
and I'll let you jump in, Paul. I want to look at that as a macro level and a micro level. The macro level says, well, you do things like you compare your like subgroups to other places like subgroups. So our scores may be here where another community is here, but if you look at every one of our subgroups, they're higher than that community's. But based on the number of population, it shifts the averages. And so always actually looking and knowing that individually, to go to the micro level, yes, our kids are going to have differences. We can't ask every child, a child that loves science and math versus a child that loves reading and history. They can both achieve exceptionally well, but they're not going to have that same love and drive for all of those classes. So one may choose to take an AP chemistry while the other's choosing to take AP psychology or choosing, to take more music classes. And really trying to meet that individual need. But the thing I always think of is, as a dad, I don't really want you to tell me my kid's the one that can't achieve. And what does that mean, as you so rightly hit? What does that mean to achieve for each child? What are those markers? And that's why it's important in special education. We have goals there that are different necessarily than just purely academic goals. I mean, there's academic goals included, but there's social goals. And that's something I think we could learn from special education in general education is what are the markers we're looking for as we educate human beings in this century that are graduating, that are moving forward, and what are those competencies that go beyond just a straight math score, just a straight reading score? So I know I haven't directly pinned down your answer. It actually comes down to you have to know each individual child. And so you have to really talk to the teachers and say, now we may report it here and you may hammer me and say, look at that difference. But if I know that that kid and that teacher knows how far they came, and no report's going to tell you what they saw in their life, that's where that kind of micro level of really talking about kids with names, instead of the macro level like we have to, talking about kids as groups and as identifiers. That's where that's important. So it's where we have to trust our professionals, trust our teachers to know, okay, we're doing a good job, because that might show up on our report that that kid didn't make the required growth. But do you know what they went through this year? Do you know how far they did actually come? And so that's kind of, we wanted, and that's part of the leadership of teachers. That's why I want teachers to see themselves as leaders. I want them to stand up for their kids and pull them forward and tell us, no, this is where they should be. So, a long answer, because I don't have the direct, well, it should be 4.1 mark. That's, but yeah.
No, I actually think you did answer it, because I really wanted to get to the micro, the individual student, and actually that really is the answer. Because when you do measure it and your groups are larger, as long as, that student is improving and the teacher sees it and it doesn't show up on a report, I'm okay with that, obviously, as long as that's happening. And, and you talked about the leadership, and as long as the teachers aren't putting out their fine china either, and so.
I would like to piggyback as well, and I really appreciate the question and your thorough response as well, because as the presentations were being given, the thought that I had is really recognizing and appreciating the broad way that we do view the skill sets that our young people have. And I appreciate you commenting on the macro and the micro level of intellect. And I'm going to again reference Dr. Howard Gardner, who talks about multiple intelligencies, which looks at that there are many ways of assessing how intelligent a child is. Linguistic ability, we've certainly heard about that. Mathematical ability, spatial ability. All of those pieces represent ways of assessing our young people and how smart they are. And I think it's important for us to look at that not as an exception, not saying, oh, this kid is smart. However, no, this kid is smart because, and recognizing and validating those ways of intellect. So thank you all for what you're sharing. And again, recognizing there is a more holistic and eclectic way of recognizing the intelligent and the bright ways that our young people contribute to their learning.
Thank you very much.
All right, good to see everybody. So good news to start off. At 7:05, I received a text that the KP unit is up and working. So what we'll do is, I won't bore you with the details of what broke, but needless to say, our folks have been on the roof all day. So if you think it's hot inside the building, go up on the white roof and spend 6 hours up there working on the system. But I do want to thank Bob Palmer and Mike Longo and Bill Phibbs and Paul Edlin for all of their work this summer in getting our buildings repaired and clean and ready to go. So the KP unit is back up. We'll run it overnight. We'll check it again at 5 a.m., but we should be good to go. Conard has a broken motor in one of their in one of their pumps is what it is. And so we have a repair part on the way for that, and what that means is that Conard's air is just working at 50%. So what we'll do is we'll run it 24/7. Hopefully it will keep up, and it'll be a little stuffy, but it's better than 0%. So they should be fine. So quickly, I want to talk a little bit about some improvement projects that we did. I won't go through all the list there, as you see, but I did put up some pictures, some before. The top is the before, for those who don't remember what our hall science rooms looked like. And then the ones on the bottom are the after. And so you can see that we successfully renovated 8 rooms over the summer. It was a very ambitious project with a very ambitious timeline, but we were able to stick with it, and everyone is in there. The rooms are great. They're bright. They're clean. They are just much more usable as far as our science curriculum and the directions that we're headed. So we're very proud of that and the work that was done with that. I'll show you some pictures. The next slide, that is the outside, so you can see what the progress of that is as well. In addition to hall, as you can see from the list, we've done everything from replacing playground equipment at Whiting Lane and at Brayburn, converting most of the buildings, finishing the conversion for most of the district space to the LED conversion, the LED lighting, and as well as we've upgraded all of our energy management systems in the building. So that gives us more of a digital approach so that we can actually track and maintain that. If you also get a chance to head up to Norfeld, you'll see Norfeld's new auditorium, which looks fantastic. If you can turn the... So this is some of the outside work that's been done at Hall. The one on the upper right shows the west side of the campus and the parking lot there. In that little area there is the new drop-off that we have, the loading and unloading for our minibuses. We diverted the minibuses to that side. It's a safer area for those students. It's closer to their classrooms and it's working out well. And then the bottom, as you can see, what we've done is, if you get a chance to go to Hall, you'll notice where graduation is, that area of the lawn, we cut into that about 15 feet, widened that whole area, and then that is the new bus turnaround. So the buses come in and then they turn around in the back and exit that way. It's been working fine, so people are used to the new system and everything seems to be well. And then again, that diverted the traffic away so that it gave us an opportunity in the upper left to build the 6 new science classrooms that are being built. On the outside, foundations in, steel should be completed probably mid next week as they do the finished steel for that. And again, the goal on that is to get that under roof and get that closed in before winter comes, so that way we can continue working on the interior and have that ready for the spring. So that will be the 6 classrooms on the outside. Everything is on schedule, on budget, and they're doing a fantastic job with that. I think that's about it for that. If you head back, there you go. So for the IT, one of the things that we've been working on this summer is a move to a paperless enrollment in management. You may have seen that if you have kids in the district, you may have seen that you can now log in and via PowerSchool actually manage your child's paperwork. So gone are the initial day packets of 15 pages that normally got lost and had to be returned and so forth. So this is an easier way of doing it. We also have a new system through PowerSchool with our school messenger. And the good news of that is that through the text-to-speech, it will translate into 9 languages. And the emails will actually translate into 21 different languages. And parents can, on PowerSchool, indicate what their home language preference would be, what they would like their messages to be received in. The bad news of that is you will no longer have my voice calling you in the mornings. It will be text-to-speech. And so that we feel that this is a much better way of actually working with our parents and helping those parents that may have been having difficulty. I'd always get the concern, well, we should do the morning announcement as well in Spanish. And I tried to point out to people that you were lucky at 5:30 in the morning it was in English, much less another language. So this gives us an opportunity again to really work with families and to make sure that people are receiving the best information in a way that works for them.
We'll be the first to say, it's not a perfect translation, because we've been corrected by this. We know that, but I think it's better than English still. I mean, we're not having somebody translate it. It's not somebody making a mistake. This is a product that we use. Not perfect, but better than what we didn't have before.
My Hindi's a little rusty. I click the button and it translates it. My assumption is it's using Google Translator, but again, the
Which
system
can be hilarious if you think about it.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. So that's why also as we go forward into weather notifications and such, I will try and keep them very basic and very straightforward, because I do think that helps with the translation as well. For transportation, as you've probably noticed if you've been out driving around, we have new buses. As you know, this is a new bus contract with First Student, and we've been very pleased with their work over the summer. We have the new buses. They're a little bit longer. As you can see, these are a different class, and so these have more of the front nose as opposed to the snub nose like we had before. But they seem to be working fine. They have different safety features. These have integrated security, integrated safety seats in them, in all of them. So for our preschool students, for example, we no longer have to have only some buses that can pick up our preschool students, because all of these buses have them built into the first couple of rows for that, which works out a little bit better for us. They also have, they're a little easier for students. They have tinted windows, you might notice, which helps control some of the heat as well. So we're pleased with them. We appreciate all the work that First Student has been doing, and Damaris and Jen Murphy did a great job over the summer on that as well. Any questions?
So just in the picture, real quick,
Which one?
this one right here on top
Okay.
with the hoods and then
Yep.
the before and after. I'm assuming that the new area that's being built right now will have the hood systems
Correct.
for
If
the...
you remember right, when we talked about the overall project, and we'll come back probably, I think in November or December, we'll come back and Bob and I will do a construction update for you officially. But if you remember, the classrooms on the outside are going to be the chemistry
Right.
classrooms, the one that really needed that ventilation, since it is much more cost effective to do that with a new construction rather than try to retrofit that with the existing.
Right, so, okay, good. And then in the parking, the minibuses at Hall are going to always go in the back? After construction, they're not going to go to the front loop?
Nope, the minibuses are going to be over on that far side near the fields. That's where
Okay.
they come in,
Right.
and that's where they're lining up, and that's where they're loading.
So I thought it was a construction thing, because the pickup is now much more treacherous, if you will. I don't know if that's
Well,
the right word.
I think that will hopefully resolve itself once the construction is out, and there will be more of an entrance for parents and such. I think now everyone's getting used to the
Yeah, okay.
logistics of it all.
Yeah, I thought it was just a construction thing, because now with the minibuses in the parking lot at pickup, it adds a whole different... Then you lost parking in the back, right there where the new tar is.
Yep, a little bit.
So,
But we expanded that over a little bit and added a little bit more.
you added parking?
There's a little bit more where we did the turnoff.
I know you added green parking, right?
Yeah, I
So,
believe that was part of the project.
right, and then, the ROE on the lighting, what's the return on, ROI and the return on
I
investment?
don't know. I can check on that for you if you'd like.
How about rules of engagement instead of,
Take out the lights.
instead of return on investment, yeah. Okay, and then it is too late too, and hindsight's the best construction, right? I thought it would have been nice to have stairs going up for the graduation at Hall where you cut into that nice wall you guys put in there.
Well, but if you go to the side there is the level area
Yeah,
that
so,
walks up
yeah.
there. So, I mean, it's
It's
gravel.
The students will still be in front of that.
Yeah, they're still going to be.
I'm thinking of everyone, the terrace so that, because it is a 3-to-1 slope and,
Yeah.
stairs would have been.
Yeah.
All right, hey, I'm going to jump all over the place here, if I may, with my various notes. Curious, at Conard, you mentioned one motor is out and 50%. Does that mean that one part of the building will be much cooler
No,
than
it
the other?
just means that the air is only moving at 50% of its normal.
Great, good news.
The upper levels will be warmer than the lower
Yeah,
levels.
yeah,
That-
because of
the usual-
thermodynamics and such. But
Okay.
yeah, but the air's moving, it's circulating, it's just not circulating at 100%.
Okay, thanks. And I'm curious at Hall with the construction, I recall living across the street from a construction zone with the school for quite some time. How are things going with the neighbors, with the communication, the feedback, and outreach?
It's been fine. There's been no concerns. And so again, we are in conversation and contact with them, and I think it's been great.
We moved one, had
We
the,
moved, the neighbor directly on the east side as you pulled in there, the house that directly abuts Hall, their shed was actually on Hall's property. And so we did relocate that for them to their own property.
Okay.
It didn't make it, but I believe we helped them with another shed. It was a really old shed.
I love how a few places in here you've emphasized cost savings and appreciate that. For example, in the school messenger, saving the district $10,000 per year. The municipal fiber at the Cogswell building saving $12,000 in annual Comcast charges. Thank you for that. I'm curious, I've heard and read about a new copier control system. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and what the limits are as far as how many copies can be made, et cetera?
I'm going to defer to Chip on that, because he's
Okay.
our copy man.
Yeah, so we have a copy system where, it's a couple things. One is it allows you to print to the copiers, and then so printing is cheaper on the copiers than it is on printers in the district. And then secondarily, when you go up to the printer, you swipe in to make your copies. We currently, in the old system, we had user codes, so they would type in their user codes. Now they just swipe their badges. So similar function, but a different technology.
Okay. Are there limits or
No.
dollar amounts
No.
or anything of that? How
No,
about-
they monitored that after the fact.
Okay.
We're not going to put limits beforehand, but if someone ends up making 100,000 color copies, they might get a phone call.
All right. Good to know, thank you. I expect savings from that and just ease as well, so that's wonderful. Great news. And another one, I go back to my days. We used to joke when the Charter Oak building was moved so much closer to the street and to my house personally, we used to joke that maybe we can get the Wi-Fi from the school, but then we realized that you don't want the school Wi-Fi. It's got filters on it anyway. But I am curious about the cable that we put in on the ASD. Can the other school buildings make use of that or take advantage of it in
No,
any way?
that's a specific thing we've put in, and really the benefit of that is not only for our students and for the programs there, the Strive and other post-secondary programs that we have there, but it also enables us to then put in place our security system with our badge swipes and so forth. So that's really something that we feel that they should be on our fiber and the same networks that we
Great.
have.
That's wonderful. Last thing, we were talking about buses, GPS in each bus is just great to hear. They also have cameras,
Yep.
I assume, right?
They do, actually. The camera system is also a wireless system. So instead of in the old buses having specific units where if you wanted to see a camera on a unit, you had to physically go and pull the tape from that bus, download it into a machine, etc. These are wireless units where if a bus reaches into the yard, it's wirelessly connected, and so their camera can be pulled up by their dispatcher. So we're hoping that it provides us a quicker turnaround and an ability to really address issues on a faster rate than the older system.
Now, one thing I would say here is, if you hear all the Power School, all of our security cameras now that we didn't have before, we're putting stress on our IT department, which has 2 less people than it did 2 years ago. And they have a bigger job and less people, so that's something that I'll probably reflect in my budget request in January, just because we've brought in people part-time just when something has to get done. Just they're doing more and more. And we actually have had savings on the clerical side, some positions that we didn't fill from this spring again. So just as an FYI, as we keep talking about all these things we're doing, there's still a limited number of people doing it.
I appreciate the reminder, because sometimes there are things where it does take a human to do. It's very neat. And many of you know I work part-time driving all over the place, and I had a chance to take somebody to work at the First Student Facility in Bloomfield, and it is very impressive. They do a lot of work there for the buses. I'm curious, Andy, I know you and I traded some notes. Exactly what could you remind us all what new buses mean? You talked about they got some different dimensions and some safety features, but wasn't it something like their 2016 model or newer? Was that?
Yeah, these are new. When we say new buses, these are new buses. These are fresh off the lot, and so they do have not only the increased safety features for them, they have the global positioning that we can also get the feeds on, so it's no longer having to call via radio to find out where a bus is. We can actually see on our computers their connection there. It has something called a warning check system, which is a relatively new system. You know, we have a system in place where on a bus, when the bus pulls into the lot or when the bus parks, an alarm goes off, and so the driver has to go physically to the back of the bus, hit the switch there to turn off the alarm. The idea that they then see and are able to clear the bus. In the past, that hasn't stopped, however, kids from being overlooked, not in our district, but in other districts nationwide. And so the warning check system is a system that once the bus is parked and locked, in essence, it's a motion detector, where if motion is detected on the bus, if a student was overlooked, if a student was under a seat hiding and then comes out afterwards and so forth, and the bus is all locked up and they're parked at the lot, this is a motion detector that then triggers a warning in the dispatch. And so it allows them to know that someone is on that bus. And so again, it's another layer of security to make sure the kids are safe.
This is great, and I got to say, it's one of those things where you read and hear about this, and you're like, oh, I wish they had that when my kid was younger, but it's great to know we've got it now, so thank you for all that.
Thanks.
Good evening. I'm wondering if you can tell us a little about the food diversion program that you have listed on the slide.
I can, actually. That was something that, yeah, I appreciate you bringing that up. We've been working with the town on this, and it's really been something that the town has been driving for a while. We've been piloting it at a couple of the elementary schools, and really what it is it's trying to make sure that when we talk about recycling, we're talking about food scraps as well. And so as students go through lines, Megan will remember we've been doing this at Bristow for years and years and years. As you go through lines, you pour out your milk in this container, you put your food, leftover food in this container, you put your recyclables in this container, etc. And so we've been putting that in place at a couple of different schools this past year. I believe it was at Charter Oak, Morley, and I believe Webster Hill. And so this is a project that, in working with the town, is going to be in place at all of our elementary schools this year. And the idea then is, again, getting kids conditioned to the fact that everything we can divert from a landfill is important. And so food scraps are recyclable at a different rate, and they actually save the town money over the long run versus simply going into the regular disposal.
What will we do with them?
We don't do anything with them. We ship them to a plant that actually either converts them, certain parts of it, I believe, go to animal food. I believe then some of it, I don't know if they incinerate parts of it, but that's where they go ahead and recycle it. So all of our recycling and all of our rubbish is sold at various rates to different companies. And so this goes at a rate there.
John Phillips, as many of you know, just does great work for the town on the Department of Public Works, and he and Andy and I communicated about this during the summer and really expanding it. It needs a push because you've got to retrain kids. You've got to retrain people that might think, well, I don't want to pour that. You know, it's weird to pour something into a container. So we're doing work on it, and happy to have John come by and talk more about it at some point this year if that's something people would want.
There is a bio-waste facility. I don't know exactly where it is, but I've heard it's lovely.
I have one more question, if that's okay, sorry. So my other question has to do with the IT department. And I noticed that we've deployed 1,277 new devices.
Yes.
And wondering what happens to the old devices, and if we give any of the families an opportunity to purchase them, or do we put them out for bid on an auction site, or do we just kind of electronically recycle them?
Well, it really depends. It depends on if there's life left in them. Remember that these are referring also to new devices. They may not be replacing a device. They may be in addition to. But one of the things that, we're always looking at is if there is something that may be an older model, it may be near its life cycle end, then it will go either up for auction. We do have items that then go into the libraries that can be rented by families as rented by students if they need a device. But the most part, none of these are simply being discarded, tossed. We're making sure that if there's life in them, that they're still being used.
Thank you, Andy. My question is around the LED conversion. I was happy to see that, that happened throughout the district. My question is, how soon would we be able to see cost savings from that? And perhaps we could put that extra money somewhere else?
Sure. Well, I can certainly get you on that, because that's, Mark had asked about the return on investment on that, and I can certainly give you that information. I'll email that to the board on that. I don't have the specific numbers. I would caution that I'm not sure it's going to be the windfall that people may see. I think it's much better from an environmental standpoint, and I think it's also better from a school lighting standpoint, an environment standpoint. I think you'll notice when you go into buildings, they're brighter, it looks cleaner, and I do think the quality of light is improved.
I think regardless if it's a landfall win of money on the lighting, it's just good in general, like you mentioned, but I still, at the end of the day, I think we're going to save some money.
Oh, absolutely.
Chip, what is it, Chip, you know?
we're going to reduce our kilowatt hour consumption. Whether we save money or not is a function of what the price of those kilowatt hours
Right.
are. So-
There you go. So
And we've gone from 13.5 million kilowatt hours, like in 2007, 2008. This 2017-18, we were at 10.3
Yeah.
million kilowatt hours.
Right.
So we saved 3.2 million kilowatt hours. But our electricity bill went up in that time because generation cost went up, distribution cost goes up. So these are significant, I was hopeful we'd get under 10 million kilowatt hours, but we're not going to quite get there. With these changes here, Catherine Divany, who's our energy specialist, assures me we will get under that. And I factor that in when we do the budget projections. Is I don't assume we're going to use the same amount of kilowatt hours each year. It reflects those types of things.
Yeah.
But you know what happens at CLMP.
No, I know, and I think-
You guys all have your CLMP bills.
Well, I think everyone got their July bill, and I think they were all shocked. I think July was our biggest bill
Oh, wait until
collectively, like as a, I think there was a lot of wows. Anyway, so the other thing too is my son and daughter came home from KP. So, Dad, how come we didn't get out early? The air conditioner was off. I know it wasn't. You have air conditioning. Stop lying to me. It was just fine. You just wanted to get out of school early. So now I got to go home and apologize to him.
Actually, Mark, you don't, because depending on, KP has two systems. And so depending on which part of the building they were in, part of the building had air conditioning today. So depending, you could at least split it with them.
I have two small questions. And you have, I'm sorry, please.
I just wanted to add that I think during the first few days of school there were some touch-ups. So my class was relocated, but today was actually my first day in the new science classroom. And so everyone was definitely really excited to be there. It looks awesome.
Yep, thank you.
That's great. See, that's the kind of thing we don't know. Small question. You gave a whole list of stuff that was done on the schools. And since I live right across from Whiting Lane Elementary School, I'm here to tell you that there's actually a big hole in the ground. So when you say that new playground equipment was installed, there's stuff left to do. So my question is there other stuff left to do, or it's
Oh, no, there's
elsewhere?
still some stuff left to do. We're still working on the playground equipment there and at Brayburn as well. We're kind of at the whim. If you remember, we had some rain.
No, I wasn't criticizing. I just meant where are we in
There's still some
progress?
stuff to do. There's some stuff that got deferred. KP's original flooring included the large cafeteria and 4 classrooms. We phased this in 3 phases for the flooring. We ran into a slowdown because, again, whenever you're doing a flooring project or any construction project, you have to do abatement of that existing flooring, and the one group that we trust to do quality abatement was involved in the hall project. And from a priority standpoint, that's the timeline. We needed to get Megan in class, and that was the timeline and the crunch we were under. So doing that, the 3rd section of KP's flooring fell off of our radar, and we'll do that next year. So it's little stuff like that as we get to a point over the summer that if we can't finish something by the start of school, we simply will go ahead and make the decision to defer it rather than get halfway through a project and have to deal with that.
Cool. And finally, to go back to the Power School thing and the computers, now that everything is turning digital, what is the plan for folks who either don't have computers or don't have enough computer literacy? Doesn't come naturally to some of us who are elderly.
With all of the things like student handbooks, forms, and so forth, we always print copies that are available at the schools that parents can pick up. If there's any question, if a administrator, if a staff knows that this parent might be struggling with this, they'll certainly go ahead and take care of that with hard copies and address it that way.
Question for you, Andy, and I don't want to assume. So if a parent who's new to the district or who even has a language barrier, and I'm sure that you all make that, welcoming, how do they find out about this information? Is it usually at like a parent-teacher conference, open house? If they're coming in for the first day, like who do they know would be the go-to? Probably the office staff, as I'm assuming.
It is, but we also try to identify that even when they go ahead in residency, in our residency office, and work with our residency office. We work with Paul's office if we come across a situation that we might need a translator to try and make sure that a parent fully understands what they're doing and make sure that they're fully understand their enrollment and when their students are starting and then the next steps for that. And so residency with them will usually convey that to the school or to the group there to say, you know, here's where you're going to need help with this and so forth, just to make sure that people really have that positive start.
Thank you for that. I pretty much thought it was like that, but I know sometimes our listening audience and other folks, they just really don't have a clue where to start, and so sometimes they just need to know what questions to ask and who to ask those questions to. So thank you.
Okay, moving right along with our exciting
Good
presentations.
evening, everyone, and welcome back. As Tom highlighted in his opening, it was a busier than normal summer from a recruiting and hiring standpoint. If you remember back in our June personnel report, our June meeting, we talked about the retirements. At that time, we had 15 retirements, and I felt pretty confident we'd probably end up right around there. And we ended up we added 10 more retirements over the summer. A couple that didn't make their decision until late August, so ended up being a little bit busier than normal this past summer. So we ended up adding 52 non-contracted teachers to our professional staff and 20 interim teachers to our professional staff. Last year we added 46 contracted teachers and 11 interim teachers, so a slight increase this year from last year. In addition, we added 3 new administrators to our leadership team. And certainly adding 70 teachers and administrators over the course of the spring and summer is no easy task. So I just wanted to take a moment to really thank our principals, our assistant principals, department supervisors, and literally dozens of teachers who served on our interview committees, not just in the spring, but right through the summer as well. Our turnover rate this year dropped slightly to 5.4% from 5.6% last year. And our retirements, as you can see, we're at 25, down a little bit from 27 last year. Exit interviews on folks that are leaving the district, we categorize into several different areas. We look at retirement, certainly, relocation out of state, family, teachers who may decide to take a year or two off to spend time with their newborn. But the category we like to focus on from year to year is the folks who leave West Hartford to teach in a neighboring district. And that number this year was 6, down from 10 last year. We historically have had a talented pool of candidates to choose from. This year was no different. We had over 1,700 applicants for these positions. And most of these candidates that you see in the report this evening were the first hiring choice of the principal or the department supervisor, which is great. 78% of those folks have their master's degree or higher, which is a little bit higher than normal. Normally we're at about 70% for our new hires, so a little bit higher this year with that. 19 of these teachers had experience in West Hartford previously, so they were an interim teacher last year. They were a teaching assistant last year, or they were a long-term sub. And we're proud to report yet again that a number of our new staff are themselves graduates of West Hartford Public Schools. So this year, 15 of our new teachers graduated from Hall or Conard and chose to come back and teach in West Hartford. Certainly, as Paul reported briefly on the diversity of our new staff, we're excited to report that the diversity of our new teachers increased from 22% last year to 24% this year. So that percentage-wise doesn't sound too great of an increase, but we had more teachers that we hired this year, so the total number increased quite significantly from last year. So we are committed as a leadership team and as a teaching community to enhancing the diversity of our teaching staff so that it more closely reflects the diversity of our student population, and you will continue to see that focus as we move into the future. We had an orientation program on August 23rd where we welcomed all of our new teachers, and it's really a great induction into West Hartford. We have a number of speakers who join us throughout the day, introducing West Hartford, assimilating West Hartford to them, and certainly talking about our mission and goals and beliefs and values. Brittany Leghorn, who's a teacher over at Bristow Middle School, assisted us in facilitating that morning, that orientation program. We had 3 students from Aiken Elementary School join us to greet our new teachers and talk about what they love about their teachers here in West Hartford. And it was capped off by the luncheon down in the auditorium where Carol joined us and Rob Levine joined us as well, along with all of our administrators, to welcome all of our new teachers. And certainly is a great welcome to our new staff, to what a great place it is to work here in West Hartford and to learn and grow professionally. This year, our teacher's contract does expire on June 30th of 2019. So believe it or not, that 3-year contract went pretty quickly. And we will be negotiating a new contract with our teachers starting actually over the next couple of weeks. So we will be setting up a meeting where we will meet with the association, we will go through ground rules, and then we'll establish negotiation sessions throughout September and October. If we were able to settle a contract over the course of the normal negotiation process, we'd probably be done by the end of October, early November. In contracts past, we usually went to mediation. So we were not able to come up with an agreement during that regular negotiation session. So we would go to mediation. We bring a mediator in who meets with both parties to try to find a common ground. That's where we've been settling the last several contracts. If we were not successful at the mediation session, then we would go to arbitration, where an arbitration panel would help, or actually not help, but would decide on what that final contract would be. And if that were to happen, we would have a contract before the holidays. So worst case scenario would be right before that December break if we go to arbitration. Best case scenario would be right around end of November. In years past, the board has willingly volunteered to serve on that the negotiation committee, and we would welcome your participation again this year. So again, we'll be meeting through September and October, probably 3 or 4 evening sessions, and then if we get into mediation, there might be 1 or 2 really, really late evening sessions. So think about whether you would want to volunteer for that, and then we can work through you.
Yeah, sure.
The board
We'll
chair.
work with you. The only caveat would be, it is time consuming typically, and it's not something you want to stop in at one meeting and not be at another meeting, because each meeting kind of builds off the last meeting.
Well, and the other caveat, of course, is if you have a spouse who is teaching,
Right.
that or immediate family member, right,
Yeah.
that saves you from having to stay up late. So
Yeah.
look at the bright side.
Yeah, there are.
I hope that maybe we can talk to Attorney Mooney about some
Proposals?
ground
Ways to
rules,
streamline
Yeah, why don't we do that
Yeah.
in,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's antiquated.
why don't we do that in strategy?
We will do that. And that concludes our HR update. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
The one thing I do want to add, and it's something that we've been talking about, is that HR, they do an unbelievable job. I want to shout out Rick's office also, in that all that paperwork that comes through, they've been here till 8:30 for the past week and a half, getting everything together for all the people that are here still. The area that there's a shortage right now is we still don't have enough TAs. We are dramatically short on TAs. This is something that we raised our salaries for TAs. This is something, sometimes it goes to the economy. During a strong economic period, it can be hard to find TAs. And so if you know people, typically a 4-year degree, maybe somebody that wants to be a teacher, as Rick said, we've hired a lot of TAs that work as a TA for a year and then move into a building. As a matter of fact, in one of our buildings, we hired a TA and then we had to add a section, and that TA was the person that ended up coming through that interview process just a week and a half ago. So really, it's something that especially affects our special education population. So I don't know if there's anything you want to add, Gretchen or Rick. Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
we talk about turnover with our professional certified staff, and it's at that 5% range. The turnover in our teaching assistant ranks are closer to 80, 90%. So a lot of that's for good reasons. We hire folks for a year, and they're certified teachers. They want to become a teacher, and they get that first teaching opportunity. We did raise, we had a great budget last year where we increased the pay for teaching assistants. But we're still struggling because of that good economy right now and filling some of those roles. So that continues to be a challenge.
Quick question, because this is going to come up later, so let's talk about it now.
Yeah.
We understand what teachers do, but you added 3 new administrators. Can you just say something about what their new roles are so that?
So they're not new positions, but they're new
these
to
are
the
just
district.
replacements of existing.
Yeah, so we
Gotcha.
have, 3 different, assistant principal, we have a department supervisor for pupil services, and we have a, 2 assistant principals actually, but Tor Fisk, who was our department supervisor for school counseling, became an assistant principal, which opened up his position.
Okay, so these aren't 3 new positions.
So they're not new positions, they're new
I
to
just
the
wanted to make sure.
district, yeah.
Okay, cool. Other questions? Oh, please.
Teacher's contract is coming up for renewal. How about the administrator's contract?
We have 1 more year on that contract.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
We're always a year between teachers and administrators. Yeah, so 2
Thank
busy
you.
falls in a row.
And then I wanted to ask, we have a number of teachers who work at different locations. I even noticed one teacher who's at 3 different schools. Can you remind us all of the additional services or assistance we provide to those who teach at more than one location?
We do, and that typically will fall on our unified teachers, so folks who are teaching art, music, PE, world language at the elementary level, as our sections fluctuate between 20 and 18 or up to 22 in some cases. That will involve hiring more than one full-time equivalent to fill all of those different positions. So every year we do have 3 or 4 teachers, 5, 6 teachers actually, that have to move between buildings. So if they are moving between 2 buildings in one day, then they will not have a duty. So they'll be relieved of their duty if they're teaching in 2 different schools in one day. We also give them ample time to get from one school to another. So not just travel time, but time to prepare as the students, so they're not running from Norfolk to Duffy, running into a classroom and the kids are waiting for them. We give them time to transition into that role.
Yeah, and that's when people ask, what do you mean you had a .6 teacher? And it's always the same thing. Think of the 5 days of the week as 1.0, and each one of those is .2. So you could have somebody that's filling in one day or 4 half days, and that's where you get the numbers. So.
This year we have someone in 3 buildings. That's not ideal, and we try to avoid that. That's not typical.
Any particular turnover in those who have to make these switches?
No, so what usually happens, that's usually the person who comes in as a new hire will move into that role that moves in between the 2 buildings, and then as you're here longer, then we eventually get you out of that role and into a more permanent role. Yeah, so it's cutting your teeth in that first job and then working your way up.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rick. I just want to say thank you to you and your staff because it was clear that you all had a long, hard-working summer this summer. And when I attended the teachers' luncheon, I was really surprised because I had no idea that there were so many people that was going to be in the room. But I was pleasantly surprised because I was able to really see the cross-sectional of staff that you all hired over the course of the year, and I know you said more people were being hired, on the day of the luncheon. But what struck me most is that I know, Tom, you and the team have been working on diversity and diversifying the staff, and it was clear on that day. And not only was in terms of a good cross-section, but what I loved is I loved to see the young teachers as well as the more experienced or veteran teachers as well. And then to hear the stories of the number of teachers who were students in the system and came back to teach, and then the number of folks that were now principals who were teachers and taught students who then came back and then are now in leadership roles.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's just a big applause to this district and what you're doing, and that you just continue to strive for excellence. And it's evident in terms of the folks that you bring on board. So
Thank
I
you.
just wanted to thank all of you on that.
Carol and I were on the same page, and I'm also will echo your comments about being pleased to see a diverse pool of new staff. I'm wondering if we know now what the diversity of our overall staff is, including the new teachers and those who've left in the last couple of months.
We will, we'll update that number as we move through there. Yeah, we'll take a look at that final, I don't know what that overall number, and that'll take time to get, that number was at roughly 8%, I think, last year. So as well as we did and getting up to 24% this year, that's the only way we're going to get at that 8% is with our new staff coming in. So we need to keep that number going, if not increase it, to really make an impact on that 8%. But it's going up. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.
Welcome back. Oh, thank you. Good evening. Welcome back. I'm excited to talk to you about what we've been doing in pupil services. We also have been busy over the summer, and so I'd like to start with staffing and just kind of piggyback on what Rick talked about. So one of those administrators that we hired to fill a retirement position is Miss Melissa Cook. She will be the department supervisor at the early learning centers, both at Whiting Lane and Aiken. She'll also be working at Bugby, Smith, and Whiting Lane School. So we're very lucky to have her, and she started right away, in with both feet, jumped right in and started meeting with families and students and staff members, and things are going really well. We also hired 11 new certified staff to replace folks that had left, 3 nurses, 2 interpreters, and have filled our 3 new positions for the new programs that we spoke about last year, which is the school engagement team, as well as the culinary coordinator. So we're very excited about those 2 programs getting their start, and I am looking forward to talking to you more about that in the spring, to talk to you about how that is going and how it's impacting students. So pupil services, as many of you know, is often, while it's one of the most rewarding positions to have, it's also filled with some paperwork. And we have some mandates and things that we have to report on all the time. And so we have a lot of determinations and reports that come to us on that macro level about how we're doing in pupil services. And a number of them come in over the summer. And so I wanted you to know that we have met standard for all our timelines, which is fantastic, through the state. We also maintained our NIAC accreditation for early childhood, and those were 2 great designations. We also, through our state reporting system, have some things to report, successes, and that is that last year in particular, our early childhood outcomes, we were only meeting 4 out of 6 standards. This year we met all 6, which is fantastic. We are making progress with increased graduation rates with standard diplomas, but we do have some areas to work on, and those are placements in separate settings. So students aren't always in the regular ed classroom all the time. We're going to continue to work on increasing their time in regular ed settings, and our participation and performance rate for 11th graders on state tests.
I do want to say one thing. That's placements in separate settings, because we do get judged on this, but it goes back to your point earlier with the micro versus the macro. We're not going to move a kid out of an appropriate setting so that our numbers look better for the state. And that's, we are judged on time with non-disabled peers, and that's important, and there's good reason for it. But that's for a macro. That doesn't mean for an individual child we have a mandate like, okay, let's get this kid in there so that we can reach passing in the state eyes. That's not what we do.
And that's not the message, that we've given to teachers. And the teachers, the message that they hear from all of us is you need to do the right thing for that individual child. So as a result of some of these designations, plus our own self-reflection, we have some priorities for the upcoming year. And they involve, of course, IEP goals and objectives and making sure that they're accurate and appropriate on an individual micro level, that we are compliant with eligibility requirements, and we're looking to decrease that disproportionality of identifying students. But again, at the end of the day, if a student needs services, they're going to get services, and if they qualify for services. We're especially excited to look at our post-secondary delivery model with the start of the new culinary program, as well as the greenhouse at our farm. And we will be going through a curriculum program review this year for our resource program, primarily at the secondary level, middle school and high school. So we're looking forward to that. And we're also going to take a look at ELC curriculum, Early Learning Center curriculum and assessment this year to make sure that, again, we're providing the most appropriate education for all students. We will continue to support mental health and behavior, and we're going to do that through our partnership with Paul's office, with CPS, with our new school engagement team, and with continuing to partner with our community resources. And we will continue to attract and retain good teachers. We do this through our CSI model, through our own professional development that all our teachers and administrators engage in, and for paraeducators and teaching assistants. And then lastly, we're going to be working on engaging with parents, and we continue our partnership with SEPTO, but we're also working on things, again, at the school level, the department level, within each of our PPT meetings, all the things that we engage with parents in, we're looking to truly partner with them. And then I'd also like to talk to you about ESY. We had a very busy year. We provided support for students, 348 students who qualify for ESY services. There were 32 classes offered between Whiting Lane and Bristow, and this year at Conard. And those classes are very differentiated to meet the needs of individual students. And so with that, we had 167 certified, non-certified staff and 37 certified staff who worked in ESY this year to meet students' needs. They had a great time. Every time I toured the programs, people were smiling, they were happy. They were also really engaged in work. And so we work very hard to make sure that students are maintaining their skills as they move into the new year. We also enjoyed some work with interns from CCSU. We had the Special Education Master's Program bring some students in that worked in all three of our programs. And I think Rosina mentioned earlier tonight that our work at Conard was especially fulfilling because our students were able to engage with a number of the students in your programs, and I think they both really benefited from that experience. So my staff voted to stay at Conard for next year. Not quite sure if we will, but that was their vote. And I would like to give a special thank you to Mike Davis and Susie Holt, who run the ESY program. They work tirelessly with all of the principals, security, facilities, transportation, with Rosina's office, to really put together a wonderful program. 2 years ago, we decided to reduce the number of days, and so it is a 6-week program, 4 days a week. We were hoping that it would address some of the attendance issues, and that is still a factor that we look at. We're still seeing a fairly significant number of students who attend less than 90%, which is allowing for 3 absences over those 3 weeks, or over those 6 weeks. So we'll continue to look at those days and the appropriateness in terms of the length of ESY. And that is it for me.
Thank you. Can I just follow up on the very last thing you said?
Sure.
Just because I was going to actually ask about the same thing. So the 4-day week and the 6-week length, you're saying may not have improved things completely, but maybe we saw a little bit of improvement, or didn't it make no difference at all? Or?
It did not make a difference. If anything, this year we saw a little bit of a reduction in attendance. And so our target is to get students to attend at least 90% of the time. And so we did see an increase in the percentage of students who did not. And so we're going to continue to address that.
And was there any piece of the programming you felt like you had to jettison because you shortened it? Or, in other words, did we make the right decision?
In my opinion, yes, we did. And what we're finding over the last 2 years is through restructuring, because of the reduced number of days and hours, we've actually reduced the the number of non-instructional hours that are happening during the day. We've increased the number of instructional hours, and so we're actually seeing students who are producing more work and providing more instructive feedback to the case managers the following year, showing that these students really are continuing to make progress on their goals and objectives. So we've actually, I think, overall improved the instructional time.
So that's great. So we may not have solved the absence problem, but we have, you're saying that this change has really improved the quality of what we're giving.
Absolutely.
That's great. Thank you. Other questions? Dave?
Trivia question, and maybe very impolite here, but I'm curious. CCSU Master's Program, students came to assist with us?
They're students in the master's program for special education,
Yeah.
so they're actually all current teachers, again, who are getting their masters, and so they came and interned with us. There were 7 over the summer and made a significant impact, and so we're excited about partnering with them and hope to be able to do it in the future.
That's wonderful, and I know they need the experience, and it's great. The impolite part of my question, is there a cost to us when they come?
Absolutely none.
I like that answer. All right, thank you very much.
Curious question, in terms of those absences, are there barriers that folks are something out of their control, or they're just like case-by-case basis in terms of why?
I'm sure it is a case-by-case basis. I'm sure sometimes it's they're choosing to do something with their families. It is a 6-week period of time. And sometimes, perhaps students are just choosing to stay home, but I don't believe that there is a barrier to coming to school. We provide full transportation.
Thank you.
All right, you're welcome.
All right, well, good evening. It's my pleasure to report on the first day of school enrollments. This is just a quick snapshot as of what happened on the first day of school. And we opened the year with 9,339 K through 12 students, about 61 students lower than last year, and about 28 students fewer than projected. So at the elementary level, we had budgeted for 204 classroom sections, and we ended up with 203. So pretty much, very, very much in line with one extra classroom. Average classroom size is 19.9, which is pretty much our standard of around 20 or so. And in total, we were about 31 students below where we, 31 students, below where we expected to be. We had slightly more students at the middle school level, 23 students more in the middle school level, concentrated in grade 6 and grade 7. The high school, we're around 23 students below grade level, and overall, we're about we said, 28 students below projections. These are just the first day of school numbers. They're a snapshot. This is obviously a time of year when the enrollments change substantially from day to day as students enroll and as students, as high school students don't show up and we find out, no, they've switched to a different school type of thing. So we keep track of the stuff. We'll do our official snapshot on October 1st, which we report to the state of Connecticut, and that sets our enrollment for all variety of sorts of state calculation purposes. And then I'll report on those as well, provide you with a detailed report on the class sizes at the elementary, middle, and high school at that second meeting in October. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
So from experience, how many, from the first day of school to, say, the last day of school, how many kids do we typically pick up through transfers and, moving? And
So it varies. So pre-K, we always pick up kids because pre-K, once you turn 3, you can start going to our inclusion preschool. So we always pick up about 50 or so pre-K students from that. From the first day of school to October 1st, last year we lost around 35, the year before we lost around 28, and then we grow, just because we're cleaning up, enrollment logs. Okay, you haven't shown up, are you really coming to school or not? It's not like they come and they leave, it's just a matter of cleaning up the rosters, primarily at the secondary school level. And then during the course of the year, I think last year we gained maybe 20 kids over the course of the year. we're pretty stable, I would have to say. I mean, on a 10,000 student base, gaining 20 to 30 kids is, 0.3%, so pretty stable.
And so, if memory serves me correct, in the time I've been on the board, we're down about 1,000 in about 4 or 5 years, 1,000 students.
So the peak was 2010, 2011, when we were at 10,035. So we're down around 700 students.
The only thing to remember is we've also added pre-K during that time. So 9,300 is K through 12, but then you had pre-K, we're up to what, 9,600?
Right, so it was I think it was 9,900, so we're down 600 or so on K through 12. Yeah, these numbers are only K through 12. They don't include pre-K. The October 1 will be everything, including pre-K.
Oh, you do? Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I like your phrase, Mark, if memory serves me, because I've been struggling with this. I seem to recall, or maybe it's from my days way back when my kids were at charter, but wasn't one of the promises of the magnet schools that there were smaller class sizes, and is that still the case?
So the couple things about how class size works. So class size is a function of the board guidelines that you set. So the guidelines are 23 in kindergarten through 3rd grade and 27 in 4th and 5th grade. At our two magnet schools, Charter Oak and Smith, we set slightly smaller class size guidelines, 22 in kindergarten through 3rd grade and 23 in 4th and 5th grade. So everything, we're all underneath our class size guidelines. The difference is the breaks. Charter Oak typically only has enough students for about 40 kids per grade level. So we then fill them we bring in another 40 kids. We sort of control where the number of students are. So we sort of aim each of these places to be at around 20 students per section. So you're 40 neighborhood kids, we bring in 40 magnet students. Smith is a little bit different. The other schools are based on the enrollment. So if they have 69 students, they're going to have 3 sections of 23. If they have 70 students, they're going to have 4 sections of 17 and 18. So there will be schools, the enrollments at the magnet schools will be right about where we plan them to be. The enrollments at the other schools will also average out to where we plan them to be, but some there'll be much greater variance. Some will be very low and some will be very high. So that's why you see the class sizes of 25 and 26 at the upper grades in these other schools, but you don't see them at Smith and Charter Oak. That's also why you see the class sizes of 14s, 15s, and 16s at some of those schools. It's just sort of the way the breaks work.
Yeah, so you're right, Dave, that we have a maximum, but like for a couple years, people I'll use Morley and Bugby as example, thought, well, we have bigger class sizes because we're not getting the sections. And then it's not like this year, because you'll see Morley has smaller sections this year. It's not like we decided, okay, they need smaller sections. It's that they have 34 kids in kindergarten. So it can't have one section of 34. So it's just 2 sections of 17. When they have 51, it's not a 26 and a 25. Next year it could be, if we chose, because that would be within the class size guidelines for 4th grade. But for 3rd grade, that means 3 sections of 17 again. So that's where it's something I always try to explain to people, because they see it and they misinterpret it. Why do we have sections of 21? They only have 17. It really is just purely the math of how many kids are in that grade.
Sure. So my thought on asking that, and it's interesting, I tried, and admittedly briefly, I tried to look at the magnet brochure, and I didn't see any mention of the class size, but I might have overlooked it. But my thought was, when we talk about all 203 sections were under class size guidelines, and then we mentioned the average elementary size is 19.9, but that includes the 2 magnet schools that are artificially low, kind of, and I don't know if the numbers here kind of skew that or not. It doesn't look like they might, but I'm wondering, when you give us the numbers in October, if you might just break out the 9 non-magnet schools and show us what the average class size there would be.
They're not artificially low this year, though. Right. They're sections, we didn't have to make any breaks there, so they actually fit in with the average, because what you're talking about is if we had to break at 23, but we didn't have to at the magnet schools. So nothing changed with the magnet schools this year. The standard schools, they all were able to do the regular break with regular math without taking anything into account, be it a magnet or a regular school, just based on the number of students we happen to have in each grade.
So to just make sure we're honest, or we've got valuable numbers going forward, that happened this year, but in future years it may not, and I'm wondering if we could just kind of break out for the 9 non-magnet schools.
Yeah, I mean, it very rarely happens. We can. I'm trying to think.
You
of
know,
what's
I
happened.
mean, there is a rare case when, you know, if the number gods all went against us, that we could have 23 in every kindergarten through third grade in those other 9 schools, and 27 in the fourth and fifth grade. And so the average class size would be 25. I've been doing this for 20 years. The average class size over those 20 years is 20.
All right. Okay, that's good. Let's see. Thank you for that. Let's see here. I want also noted, just looking at the numbers here, I know that they'll change some, but it's interesting. So at Duffy, I see that's our largest school by student population at 506. Charter Oak is next at 459. It's a magnet school. We control that. But then the next school is Wolcott, happens to be Wolcott at 401. There's 100 students difference between Wolcott and Duffy. Are the buildings suitable? And looking at the numbers in the lower grades, Duffy, it looks like it's pretty straight across. There's no bubble necessarily. Are we making wise use? Years ago, we did a micro spot redistricting. Are we at a point where we might want to consider something like that to relieve space issues?
This is the best space issues we've ever had in the district. Yeah, this is
Even at
really.
Duffy?
Even at Duffy.
With 500?
Yeah. I mean, because Duffy's basically been stable. I mean, that number.
I think it was 530 a couple of years ago.
Yeah. So it's actually, it's down a little bit. And Duffy just pretty consistently, there was a year where Wolcott was climbing up there, was getting high with Duffy, especially with the pre-Ks. But realistically, pretty much there's not a spot redistricting need right now as far as classrooms versus what you have. I mean, that's just, right now we're in pretty good shape.
And if I could go to the other end of the spectrum, and not picking on anybody, just looking at numbers here, but as I look at Whiting Lane with 254, and I think what I recall of the building from when my son went there many, many years ago it's huge. Do we have a lot of extra space
Don't
there
forget
now?
the pre-Ks.
Right,
That
the
254 doesn't include the ELC.
Okay.
So once you throw that in, you're at a bigger number. But yeah, Whiting Lane has more space in some of the buildings, but because of the diverse needs of the student body, there's more adults in that building. There's a larger teaching staff than you'd expect because that does serve so many of our students with needs that are at a very young level, the ELC there.
Thanks.
I just have a curiosity question. You have the total that we have, you offer compared to the total last year, and then you have the projected total, and you mean the projected total is what you anticipate having in October?
What we projected for October of 18.
Oh, so this is a past projection, it's
This
not
is the
you're
past
projecting, okay.
In
no, we
October, Chip will present the projections
For
for
November.
again, so we
November.
can look at that question, Dave. Is this something where
Right.
might we have a classroom issue? Or
Oh, okay, so it's not a prediction for where it's going to settle in October. It's a prediction that we made last year.
This is the prediction we
Have-
made in November of 17.
Right, okay.
Correct.
And which is higher in,
Low,
in-
we have fewer students than projected.
no, that's right, but higher in middle school than projected, but lower in elementary and high school.
Correct.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I
Yes.
understood the projection.
And,
Okay.
to be honest, those are, you're never going to get it right.
Oh, of course. No, I-
It actually,
I
It is
this will be
1%,
one of the
yeah.
better,
Yeah.
this will be one of the better years for that.
Yeah, I think it's actually remarkably close. But anyway, I was just curious. I just wanted to make sure I was reading it correctly. Other questions? Thank you, sir. I think that's it. Any questions overall? Thank you very much. This is incredibly informative. Okay, so we're up to routine matters, which are never routine with this group. Approval of the minutes. They're slightly amended with, as you know, just with a name change because of a typo. But can I have a motion to approve the minutes from the June 5th, 2018 board meeting?
So moved.
Second?
Before we do that,
Oh,
I'm sorry. I
Yes.
do see another typo, though, so
I
I'm
got
not.
it.
Okay, all right.
I'm sorry, were you, did you?
No, I just, we have to, you said, do we approve the minutes? We have to approve the minutes with the amendment, that's all.
Oh, that's what I was saying, with,
It's just
given the
language,
amendment
right.
to the change, right. That's right, of the change in name, and there's actually a "my" that should be "may," that's going to be corrected. And is that the one? I'm on the June 5th one, and I just want to make sure. Yeah, and also the third amendment, not only the name, but also the description of the bus, the start times conversation that was all there. We actually did one more thing at that meeting that didn't end up here, which is that we asked them to look at specific times. And so I just asked them to add a sentence that said that we had done that, just so that it's clear. So with those revisions, I was assuming that, do we still hold with our moved and seconded?
Yes.
Okay.
Did we get a second?
Yes, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. Moving right along, and I have a recommendation. I think is this the one where the my and may is? Yeah, again, with the change that my should be may and Carol's name should be my name. Can I have motion to approve the Board of Education minutes of the special Board of Education meeting of June 18th?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. We are being routine. All right. Information and reports. Board members?
Yeah, I have.
Mhm.
Well, just want to give a shout out to the first day of school. Okay, for the Smith STEM School, if anybody's still up watching, this would be to Teresa and staff and all the students. It was a great first day, and I think everybody was terrific, and I loved the way how the teachers were just the cheerleaders for all their students returning and the new students as well. So just great job and being excited about the first day of school, and I just want everybody to be excited every day thereafter until the last day of school as they were on the first day.
Thank you. I think several of us were at some of those openings. I was at Waiting Lane, and I know several of you guys were too. So it's a wonderful thing to see all those excited new faces. Great. Other comments? Yep.
Yeah, with the fall sports starting, there's been some issues with the heat, and the coaching staff, coaches and their staff and the medical personnel just been really, the way they're modifying practices, they have the ice baths out there, it's nice to see that they take it very seriously, and I want to thank them for it. They're doing the right things, and it's noticeable.
Yeah, I was thinking about like track. I mean, it's not track. It's cross country. I can't even imagine. Absolutely. Anyway. Bravo. Absolutely. So thank you. Oh, please.
Carol, you reminded me, on first day of school, I got to attend the flagpole ceremony at Bugby. It was very neat. Thank you to Principal Kelly Browse and all the staff. Got to meet a lot of parents. I jotted down a quote because it was so cool. I thought, there were many, but this one really caught me. One of the students encouraged everyone to throw kindness around like confetti. And that's a neat one. So I think that's the spirit of Bugby School right there, and I know they're going to have a great year as well.
Great. Other adults, yes?
I'll just recognize as well Charter Oak, their first day, wonderful flag ceremony. And I greatly appreciate the fact that in spite of it being so hot, they recognize the need to speed the program along. So thank you so much to all of the teachers and staffs there as well.
Yes, and I should say, I assume this was true at all of them, certainly at Whiting Lane, and all the parents who were standing in the blazing heat, stuck it out quickly, though they may have gone. So yes, absolutely. Other grown-ups until we get to the high point. Okay, which is our report from our student board representatives. What's up?
All right, so as all of you know, the school year started Wednesday, but I think everyone's been settling in pretty well. It was especially smooth for the freshmen, thanks to the efforts of the Link crew who run the orientations and help the freshmen find their classes. Sports have started, which, as Mr. Zandanowitz mentioned, were a bit of a pain in the heat. We've had to cancel a few practices, but it's been going pretty well, and games and meets begin later this week. The summer was great, but most students agree that it's good to be back.
Pretty similar at Hall. A few days before, Link Crew was at Hall getting kids transitioned, which was great. I was part of it. Probably the highlight was one of the teachers does a little activity where they rip a dollar bill in front of the kids and say, wasting a day is like wasting a dollar. So then she pulled out a 20 and kids got scared. But that was a great experience. Sports tryouts have been great. Little hard because of the heat, but everyone's been really excited to get into the swing of things. We have games already starting, and clubs and activities have been really great. I know from Hall, I was at the clubs and activities fair, and there were not enough tables for all the groups, and sign-up sheets were adding pages, so it looks like it's going to be a great year in terms of extracurriculars at Hall, and I think everyone is really, really excited for an awesome school year.
Great, thank you. Oh, please, Mark.
Hey, Megan, we talked about it earlier. Any concerns from the students for the construction at all? Have you heard?
No, I think everyone's obviously really excited about the science classrooms, and it seems there's no really worries about the outside ones. I think kids are just excited to have those chemistry classes, but it's been really positive feedback from the students.
Great, thank you. Thank you both. Good job. Keep it up. Because of all the holidays and things in September, we're not having a second September meeting, so our next board meeting is October 2nd, 2018, right here at 7 o'clock, as usual, followed by a meeting 2 weeks later, October 16th, also here, also at 7 p.m. Any requests for future agenda items? None at the moment. Okay. Comments from the many visitors still here? All right, with no executive session, can I hear a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion.
Seconded, motioned and seconded, moved and seconded. All those in favor, let me bang my gavel. Okay. Aye.